What makes you a woman? What makes you a woman loved by God? Am I less of a woman because I'm not a mother? Am I less of a woman because I am what Hollywood might say is not feminine enough? Am I less of a woman because of whatever scenarios go on in my mind? What makes me a woman? Is it just my physical body? What makes me a woman? Is it my my ability to keep house like Martha Stewart? Bake? What defines me as a woman? And I had to come to that place where I realized that who I am as a woman starts first with me, how I view myself, and what God has deposited in me. Hi everyone, my name is Ruthmoisa, and this is my real girl testimony. So recently I was reading a Bible passage, a story about a young woman called Hadassah, or we would know her as Esther. And for those of you who may not be as familiar with this story, this man, King Xerxes, he had a falling out with his wife, Queen Vashti. And the falling out resulted in Queen Vashti being disposed, and then there was a hunt on for a replacement of a wife. And so being the king, being a man of influence, what his employees, so to speak, did was to go out into all the land in search for young virgins, young women that could potentially be the next queen. Almost like a model search, if you want to call it that. And I remember reading this story, and I recall of all the young ladies that was chosen in the land, what you would call the person in charge of the search, he grew really fond of Hadassah. And in his mind, because he favored Hadassah, he encouraged Hadassah, I would say, even more so than the other young ladies. And Hadassah did whatever this gentleman, can't recall his name right now, but this gentleman would have advised her to do, she did. And they went through, all the ladies, they had to go through a period of 1 year beautification, both internal and outside beautification. Long story short, Hadassah goes into the king's chambers, and of all the women in the land, Hadassah was chosen or favored by the king, and she became the queen of that land. And I remember thinking, what was so special about Hadassah that she would have stood out? I'm certain that there were lots of beautiful people in that land. I'm certain that with the beautification treatments that they all were exposed to, I'm certain that there was so much that would have been done to make all of these women attractive and appealing, at least visually. So what could have Hadassah done that would have made an impact on the king just in one night? And as I was thinking about that, I thought about myself. What is so special about me? What is it that I bring that sets me aside or sets me apart from anybody else in this race called life? What is so special about me that one night with the king would bring me favor? I recall from a young girl battling with low self-esteem. For persons that know me and know my character, know how I operate in social circles, they may find that a surprise. I've always been interactive. I've always, whether it is reciting poems at Sunday school or being very vocal, I was an athlete. I didn't used to roll with a lot of people, but I always had a presence, or always carried a presence of that would make people think that I was confident. But on the inside, I battled for years with low self-esteem. And if I go right back to where those feelings of low self-esteem came from, I can recall primary school. And I remember in primary school, as a young girl, somehow we were consciously or unconsciously socialized to believe that beauty was for those girls who were fair skinned or had long hair or pretty hair. And in my mind, I was not pretty because I was dark. Well, I am dark, of a darker complexion. I didn't have long hair, and I didn't have what some people would call pretty hair. I have a memory of when I was about 11 years old, and some children, two things happened. Once my father came to the school, and my father is of a darker complexion than I am. And I remember some of the children saying, you father real black, you father real black. And for me, I felt almost a bit embarrassed. I think I was too young. I was still very young, but I became embarrassed of blackness because the children saw my dad and they say, you father real black, and some of them laughed. Interestingly enough, the children that called my father black they were also black too. But then there was another occasion when my mom, some children had the opportunity to see my mom. Now my mom is of a slightly fairer complexion than I am, and at the time she was wearing her hair long, or it's not long and flowing, but it was longer at the time, thick hair. And the children said, your mommy's so pretty, your mommy's so pretty, your mommy prettier than you. And that impacted me as well. I have one brother, and he has my mother's complexion. His eyes are of a slightly lighter hue than my own. And I always felt like if my brother looks like my mom, then he is the beautiful one or the handsome one. And because I am darker, or my hair is not as long, I am not as pretty. Fast forward a little bit into secondary school, I had acne. Now, if I was battling self-esteem issues, acne just threw me over a cliff. And I remember there was this one incident where our drama teacher, he had a camera in class. Was it a camera? No, it wasn't a camera. Well, it was a camera, but he was filming, and he filmed the class. And I remember when he was showing us the recording, for some reason the recording came out even darker than what you would call reality. And I remember he was showing the film in the class, and when the camera landed on me, the children, in my mind, it seemed like the entire class, maybe it wasn't, but it felt like the entire class started to laugh, and they were saying how black I am, and oh, bumpy face. So I heard it. And you know, sometimes children can be so mean. Your face bumpy like a cart road, and all of that. And that experience impacted me even greater than I probably would have admitted. But it meant that I was not happy or comfortable looking in a mirror. Yes, I did not spend inordinate amounts of time in the mirror. I did what I had to do and move on. And I was not comfortable with looking at myself in a mirror. I was not comfortable taking photos. And that image, that feeling, the feelings of my self-image, it actually carried on into my early adulthood. I would have unconsciously compensated or overcompensated for those feelings of insecurity with confidence, with excelling in the areas that I was good at. And so in some cases I was good at my schoolwork, so I excelled academically. I excelled when it came to writing or various things, reciting poetry, etc. I did those because I felt affirmed in those areas. But when it came to how I looked, it really impacted me. And I think this is something that I had to really confront when I got married. I had in my mind that the husband should be the one to affirm and make me feel beautiful. And, if I did not hear that often enough, I would feel insecure. But I realized, and one day my husband did say to me, and he was right. He said to me, but hun, nobody can make you feel ugly. No one can make you feel beautiful. If you feel you're ugly, that's your feeling. Nobody can change that. And if you feel you're beautiful, then you don't have to sit down and wait on somebody to come and tell you that you're beautiful. And he was right. I didn't like to hear it, but he was right. I found that I really struggled because my husband. He has that type of personality. He's not always verbally expressive. He will show and demonstrate his love in other ways, but he's not someone that is going to say, honey, you are beautiful 24/7. And even if I wanted to hear that, he's not that person. So I really struggled with feelings of insecurity. As I continued in my relationship, I realized that it was not necessarily that I was not hearing it from my spouse, but that marriage and relationships in general, what they tend to do is because you are vulnerable with persons, it exposes your vulnerabilities. And I battled with that so I'll be honest with you, it is something that even today, sometimes I may still battle with. So this is really an ongoing me sharing with you. But what has changed within the last couple of years is me being more intentional about loving myself and about affirming myself. This was not an easy task. I didn't just wake up one morning and decide I am going to love myself or I'm going to do it. Something happened that really forced me to have to make that decision, or not, I definitely would have crumbled. My self-image and self-worth would have crumbled. 2 years into our marriage, I was diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome. And for those of you who may not know, it is a hormonal imbalance that can result in numerous situations, but primarily it can cause problems with fertility and other female health situations. Now, if there was anything, if I was battling before my self-worth as a woman, can you imagine that season of my life where I had to confront the possibility of not being able to, in my mind, fulfill this dream of mine to be a mother, but then also to fulfill the dream of my husband to be a father. And it really shattered me, it broke me. And I struggled with it a lot because, as you know, in our society, we do not necessarily talk about things like this or air it out enough. And so internally, I battled with, I feel these insecurities already, and now life, you're going to tell me that in another area where other women can so easily have children, this is something that I can't do, or something that has an ability that has been somehow taken from me, and it definitely made me feel inferior and incompetent as a woman. I came to the point though, and it wasn't overnight, but with God's help, with some very sweet people in my life who were open to me and shared their own vulnerabilities as well, my circle, I came to the point where I had to confront that question that was asked of me: what makes me a woman?